Hello and welcome back. This is the Media Stand. I'm Derek, and we're going to talk about all of these sub-labels from Vinegar Syndrome, January 2024. So in Subscriber Week of January 2024, Vinegar Syndrome put out more sub-labels than they did their standard releases. And that does include their VSU release. First, we're going to talk about Sexmission, which might not be as exploitative as you were thinking. The newest Vinegar Syndrome Labs. It's a 1984 Polish sci-fi film that was supposed to be a comedy, and I kind of get why. Maybe it's because I'm Polish, but due to Polish culture at the time, it was marketed more so to bring out a laugh in people, and also to poke fun at the communist regime, communist party, and gender. One thing that was very noticeable about Sexmission, the amount of sunbursts that they were getting in their lens was just overwhelming. And the film has so much halation in it that combined with the starburst, the whole thing just kind of feels very dreamy. The premise of the movie is that two men volunteer to be test subjects for a hibernation study, where a scientist has been working on a way to put people into hibernation, but has really started to master how to de-hibernate, bring somebody out of hibernation in a safe way to where you could wake them up and they would go on living as normal. They wanted two volunteers to go under hibernation for 3 years, and they would receive a nice funding for it. The two different men are very different. One is more sleazy and is just an opportunist who's looking for a way to make a buck and also kind of get away from his family, whereas the other one is a follower of the communist regime and thinks it's part of his duty to be experimented with. Only something goes wrong and they don't wake up 3 years later, they wake up 53 years later. And now they're in a world where men as a sex have gone extinct. The same scientists that put them into hibernation created something called the M-bomb that would target male genetics and was supposed to paralyze them. Makes sense, as he's someone who has studied putting somebody into hibernation. Only something went wrong with that, and instead of paralyzing them, it kind of just killed them off somehow. So now the only people left are female in sex, and they rule the world. So they de-hibernate these two males to study them and figure out if they could be of use to anything. And the two men try to figure out how to escape because they've realized that they're kind of imprisoned. And then they find out that, oh, war, M-bomb, radiation, they're stuck underground. But in the future, there are two different sects of the females that are working for this large company. Ones who are more propagandists and looking to indoctrinate the other women there to hate any form of male, even though there are no males left, and teach them how to fight. And the other half is more curious, wants to learn about them.
Do czego służyli mężczyźni?
Mężczyźni do czego służyli? No, używało się ich w większości wypadków do pracy, a zresztą nic nie pamiętam.
Jak to nie pamiętasz? Przecież w twoich czasach to oni byli na porządku dziennym.
Tak, dziennym, no i nocnym.
Do czego oni byli potrzebni?
Do rozrywki, to jest w pewnym sensie.
And even looks at ways to naturalize them, which would mean sex change, turning them into female, which, spoilers. That's what they try to do to the two males. But in the democratic vote that led to naturalization, one of the women who is alive at this time in the underground colony is the sleazy guy's daughter, so she wants revenge on him leaving them forever, or at least for 53 years. But one of the other women who's there studying them helps them escape. They go up top. They find out that it was all an illusion. There is no radiation. They're just underground in a bunker for no reason. And then they find a house and they're like, oh my God, we could have a normal life. We're making eggs. And then they find out, oh no, the president of the Women Underground Society has an elevator that comes right up to this house, and that's her house. But oh wait, that's not a woman, that's a man in drag. And was only doing that because he found out he was the only male alive for so long, and he was afraid to let that become known because everybody hates men. So he put on drag and presented himself as a woman, somehow became president, and has been kind of living this double life where he comes up lives in his house above ground where he knows there's no radiation, and then goes back down to rule the underworld. It's bizarre. And honestly, it speaks a lot to not only what was going on in Poland with the Communist Party, but also what things would look like in the future for them in 1984, the future of 1990 and 1944, with gender roles and how those play a part. This was kind of poking at what was happening a lot in the 60s, as with the sexual revolution, movie roles were starting to shift from damsel in distress and the male hero to more female lead and honestly very exploitative sexual roles in talking about sexual liberation. And there's moments where it feels like this doesn't hate men, it doesn't hate women, doesn't really side with either one. And the only part that really feels like is more a product of its time is its look on gender change. And I would love to see how this kind of translates to anyone in the LGBTQ community as far as transgender perspectives. But honestly, a very interesting film. Yes, I was going into this thinking it was going to be a raunchy sexploitation film, and there is lots of gratuitous nudity, but it was honestly just a good sci-fi. Well, on to another sci-fi, and this time a VSP, Vinegar Syndrome Pictures, Divinity. And as with all of the other Vinegar Syndrome pictures, with the exception of New York Ninja, which has the magnetic clasp case like the VSUs, Divinity has the... I feel like I have to do that, even though I hate it. It's also kind of fun. A hard cardboard case with the little notches for your thumbs to grab the slip case, in which you can pull out the plastic case to get to the disc. Divinity is a fantastically bizarre film. It was released in 2023 and shot on 16mm black and white reversal film. It's a speculative sci-fi about the creation of a serum
or potion
that reverses aging and even lends to changes to the physiology and probably DNA of someone's body. It can even make them stronger, more muscular, more athletic, more sexy. But it makes people infertile. And so most of the planet has become infertile, and thus no new people are being born. I guess that's the poetic cost of eternal life. Then it has different celestial or dimensional sects that begin trying to intervene and redirect the course of humanity away from this thing that they see as horribly derailing the progression of humankind. And that leads to some really weird stuff. I really liked this movie. It's like a Cronenberg-esque 50s sci-fi with a touch of 70s horror. It's like a Lynch-made 50s horror. It's like if David Cronenberg and Ty West decided to make a movie about ants. Like a Lynchian noir. It's so hard to describe this film. It's just the aesthetics of it, the noir feel due to the black and white film. And the kind of low-key subtleness that's not quite camp level, that then later very much leads to camp level. It feels like sci-fi from the 50s, but from the mind of someone who was making films in the 60s or 70s. It's just fascinating.
I want you to taste every inch of my body.
I'd say even if you don't want to pick up this release, find it somewhere to watch because it's such a fantastic movie. Or you know what, just go buy it. Just go buy this release. It's amazing. Okay, so then we're going to talk about Black Cat 1 and 2, the newest VSA. This is maybe the thickest VSA I've ever seen, maybe because it also has inside a booklet that is a side turner. It's landscape style. And you also get your poster. I'll be honest, this is probably my first time actually looking at the poster. That's a poster. Whee! And it reverses. Whee! Yeah, probably the first time I've seen a VSA that had a booklet like this included, thus them making a thicker case. But honestly, it means you get it in and out of there a lot easier. And I love that, because sometimes these VSAs can be a pain in the ass. So you get 2 films in this, 1 and 2, obviously. And the first one is the best, probably the way a lot of this goes. But it's a spy thriller that sometimes forgets about the spy and assassinate type things. The main character is arrested after a really fucked up situation at a truck stop, which leads to a fucked up situation while in custody, and then is almost assassinated on her way to court, then is assassinated in an alley, but gets brought back and has a chip implanted into her brain, making her the ultimate weapon, and is supposed to unlock her potential. Yeah, it's one of those movies. But for some reason, the chip is inhibited and doesn't completely take. But she can still do all the physical things. Martial arts, aim really well with a firearm, swim, hold her breath. She just can't see and process like a computer. It's like they wanted to turn her into the Terminator, but couldn't do that by putting a microchip into her brain. She goes on a few missions and finds a romantic partner, and then some action happens. It's a well-grounded movie for the premise. Nobody really plays anything off like a joke, like everything's played very straight, and nothing's made to sound goofy or campy, which can't really be said about the second movie. The second film, Black Cat 2, takes a turn and makes her more robotic. Now the chip is fully in effect. She's basically the Terminator, but with a human body. The action is bumped up, the characters are more goofy, there's finally martial arts, and a touch of gun kata. It's definitely campy and maybe just a victim of the 90s, but it just didn't have the same feel as the first one. But still, a fun action movie. So now time for Southern Comfort, the new VSU release, one that I think I remember watching at some point. But you get the magnetic clasp, pull this thing, you get your plastic case with slipcover, and a perfect bound book. And then inside you get another little booklet. Just give so much reading material. But it's your standard VSU excellence that they're going to put into almost every release they do this way. You do get some really good special features, a lot of good interviews, definitely something you could put a lot of time into. And you know it's going to be protected inside its magnetic case. I always want to have fun with all these magnets that Vinegar Syndrome gives me. Southern Comfort is an excellent thriller. When a squad of Louisiana guardsmen lose their way in the swamps, they lose their minds. When one soldier plays a prank on some locals by firing some blanks from his machine gun, they start to fire real bullets back at them. And then everybody starts getting picked off one by one. And it doesn't quite lean into horror level, but just verging on it enough. With no map, no radio, very few munitions to defend themselves, they start to find out that they are one fine thread away from really snapping. And this is one that I feel like I have seen before, but maybe a long time ago. I think it was one that my dad made me watch when I was really young. And I just didn't appreciate it at the time. But now watching it, I feel like it's one that it kept me wanting more. It kept my focus. And right up to the last minute. I mean, it's just non-stop, fast-paced. Even culminating with a barbecue. Who would have thought that a spit roast would turn into a terrifying and intense moment? I know, right? But Southern Comfort, I feel like deserves the VSU level. I was kind of doubting that at first, but I mean, even if it was just put out as a standard 4K, that'd probably be fine. But a really good film, lots of good extras. Go pick it up.
We give this prayer as dead men, asking for our salvation. I don't want to hear any more of that kind of talk.
Now on to the new sublabel that Vinegar Syndrome has, cinematography. These releases are very different from what Vinegar Syndrome has put out before, and I'm not sure where they kind of fit into the whole grand scheme, but the first two, really good. First in the line is Little Darlings. It has a J card, which I'm not a fan of. It has the same style as Arrow Video, where you get the round sticker up front or round sticker on top, which sometimes they don't put the secondary round sticker, and then you're left with this. I hate that. Barbarella. But it kind of falls in line with the way that Indicator has been doing their releases lately, where the J card comes up to have some text about the film and just covers up art. But in this hard cardboard case is a digibook that is cloth covered with one 4K and one Blu-ray disc, and then a booklet full of information. And it has this ribbon, nice metallic. The film is a 1980 summer camp movie, coming of age, starring Tatum O'Neal, Christy McNichol, and Matt Dillon. A young Matt Dillon. Kind of put up as a sex comedy, but not so exploitative, as the teens in this are actual teens. And in a way, it's kind of written to be told from their perspective about things, especially when it comes to sex, losing one's virginity.
She probably doesn't know anything. I know enough. Been to fourth base? I'm 15. Nobody goes to fourth base and hit a home run at 14. What about you, smut mouth? What about me, shithead?
Even as far as smoking, any kind of what does it mean to be an adult? For the sake of the characters in the movie, what it means to be a woman.
But now you're a woman.
Honestly, it was a nice little teen coming of age movie. A nice YA film, if you will. I don't know, it was just a good movie. This one does come with a 4K disc and Blu-ray, whereas the next one, Red Rock West, does not. It's just Blu-ray. We also get the metallic. Red Rock West is a 1993 noir western, kind of in the same vein as like Near Dark, where it's a gritty noir tale set in the desert or the Midwest. Red Rock West stars Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper, and Laura Flynn Boyle of Twin Peaks. Both of these are very good films. There's good extras on them, and honestly could just be any other label from Vinegar Syndrome, be it standard. I mean, they could even make Red Rock West could be a decent VSA. Little Darlings could be just a standard release. I'm not really sure what the direction is going to be with this cinematography sublabel. Cinematograph. Cinema. But I don't know. Interested to see what happens with this. I'm not a fan of digibooks, but at least it does come in a nice hard case to kind of protect that. And the digibook itself is hardcover. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's all of the sublabels from Vinegar Syndrome, January 2024. I think they're all worth a pickup. I would definitely say Divinity is number one. Definitely go find, buy, or watch Divinity in whatever way you can. That movie was amazing. Southern Comfort is a great pickup, and the new cinematography line is interesting. So, thank you for watching. Bye.